right, good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome all of you to our 2023 City of Bellevue Transgender Awareness Week panel event. Super excited to see all of you here in person. And those of you who have tuned in online, thank you for creating some space today to join us for a really important conversation. For those of you who don't know, my name is Yuri Hattersley. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I've been with the City of Bellevue for 6 years. I am the chair of the city's LGBTQ employee resource group, the Rainbow Alliance for Diversity, and I'm a non-binary person. So today's conversation is both really important to me professionally and personally. I'm grateful to the city for creating space for us to have conversations like this, and in particular to give opportunities to our esteemed panelists, who are folks who live, work, and play in Bellevue, and in some cases go to school in Bellevue, uh, who are here to share some of their lived experiences, to answer some questions, and hopefully create a really important dialogue as we commemorate this week that was established to recognize the importance of trans people in our communities and honor and memorialize lives lost to anti-trans violence. So for today's conversation, we'll have each of our panelists begin by introducing themselves, and then I will go off camera to ask questions and we'll have a bit of a dialogue. We look forward to our time together today, and again, want to thank all of you for joining us to share your voices. With that, if you would please begin by introducing yourselves, share your name, your pronouns, and give us a little elevator pitch about who you are and what brought you here today.
All right. Hello, my name is James Webster. I use he, they pronouns. I am the vice chair of Pride Across the Bridge. I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm a funky little guy.
Hi everyone, my name's Aiden and I use he, they pronouns, and I run free drag classes sponsored by Pride Across the Bridge. And I also have a lot of experience as an educator and event planner, and so I have a special request if you want to be a super great ally to me. If you're willing and able, it's an invitation, you don't have to. I would love for people to move closer. I promise that the two front rows are not a splash zone. You will not be required to do any kind of active participation. It just makes me feel more comfortable if you're not so far away. Thank you so much. I also totally understand if you want to be in the back or you got to go for a meeting or something like that, and you just don't want to interrupt. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emmy. I go she, her pronouns, and I like making music.
I'm Tommy. I use he, they pronouns. I am 15 and I like to draw. And I like boys.
You did it. Oh, that's loud. Okay. My name is Spencer. I use he, him pronouns. I'm 14. I don't know. I'm from New Jersey.
Wonderful, thank you all so much. So, as you all know, conversations around gender identity can be complicated for folks who've never really had to face questions about gender. So I'm curious, for those who feel comfortable, when did you first start exploring the concept of gender for yourself, and how has exploring your identity changed how you view yourself and those around you? And anybody can feel free to jump in.
I'll go first. I think that I was thinking about gender way before I had words for it. And I think that's true for a lot of people, and it doesn't really matter if you're cis or trans. When you start to think about how things are gendered, you realize that you have ideas that maybe you didn't even realize you had about what are boy things and what are girl things. When I was younger and I was told, oh, actually, you can't do that with your cousins because that's not for you, I immediately wanted to know, okay, well why? And working with preschoolers, I see that as well. If you ask a preschooler, can you explain the gender rules you have in your head? All of them are gonna be like, excuse me, what? But if you ask them, these are which toys of these are for boys and which are for girls, a lot of times parents will be embarrassed that their kids have really strong opinions about which toys are for boys and girls, and they're wondering, where are they getting these ideas? They think they can't possibly be for me. But there's a lot of like indirect messaging we get about what's okay behavior in the sense of gender. And it's really funny. I remember one kid told me, they were like, "Are you a boy? I'm pretty sure you're a boy because my dad has brown hair and you have brown hair." And so they have all sorts of ideas that they're developing, just like adults do. And I think once I got to be a teen on the internet is when I started to learn about words like non-binary and trans, and it helped me so much. And a lot of people around me started going like, "Oh no, you're being exposed to these ideas." And I was like, "Oh, I was already exposed to the ideas. I just couldn't put words to it. And these words are really helping me navigate it. And I want to be able to explain myself to other people so that they can be closer to me, not further away." And so I think that was one of the things that was hard for both me and my family to navigate, this idea of this concept of gender is not new. It was always there and it was always affecting us. It was just when I started to get the language and become more aware, and it was an opportunity, not something that was destructive. And it took a long time before I was able to really feel like confident in navigating that. But when I think about it, it's like, oh, even as young as 3, I have memories about having gendered experiences.
Before we hear from others, very quickly, Aiden, you used a couple of words that I'm hoping we can define for the audience for those who don't know, and those words are cis, non-binary, and trans. So either you or others, would you feel willing to offer a little definition for folks who don't know what those mean?
Cisgender means that you are that you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. Trans means you do not. And then what was the third one?
Non-binary.
Non-binary. Non-binary means that you fall outside of the gender binary of A or B, male or female, that you are somewhere in between, above, below, around, other.
Appreciate that, thank you. So for others, when did you first start exploring gender? What was that experience like?
I started exploring my gender. So I've always been a bit of a tomboy, but I kind of started looking at gender and being non-binary when I was in 5th grade. And I have kind of, up until that point, identified with being a woman. And I think that is something that needs to be introduced to conversations with cis people about gender, that not everyone kind of knew from a young age. Like, some people did figure it out later in life. Like, everyone has kind of subconscious ideas of who they are in terms of their gender, like what it means to be a woman or what it means to be a man, and like your community and the way that you interact with people part of your community. And I was part of the women community for a long time, and I think it's a very strong community, but it just wasn't for me. Like, I experienced it, I lived it, and I changed my mind. And I think saying that I was born in the wrong body feels wrong for me, because I think if I didn't experience being a woman, I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't have the same personality. Like, I feel like I would be a lot different and a lot more boring of a person, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of trans conversations are like, we need to get people gender affirming care because they were born in the wrong body, and not because it will make them feel safe no matter where they came from, like how they acknowledged it.
Okay. I was literally about to jump on like all the same things Tommy said, but like from being a kid, I was honestly like the most girly girl. Like my favorite thing was dress up, and I had so many Barbies, and I just loved everything feminine, and that was my thing. And so I think sometimes I feel really excluded when the conversation is kind of always like, oh, you just know from like the first moment you can think. And it's like, not really. Like, I was just a kid and I just liked to wear fun clothes. Like, I don't think it was that I'm like secretly a girl. I think it was that, like, to me, it's just, oh, this is a fun thing. I never really like associated it as a gendered thing. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. I've always been like a very like flamboyant person, and like now I kind of choose to dress more masculine, but sometimes I don't, and I'm still like I'm a drag queen, and people are very confused by that because they're like, why would you want to transition to being a guy if you're just gonna do drag? And it's like, well, because I think it's fun. So I don't know. And then I think I remember getting like a little bit older though, and getting into school, and then it kind of became the thing of like subconsciously it was like, oh, I guess I have to like girls now because that's the thing that guys do. But I didn't start thinking, oh, I'm a guy. It was just a lot of conflicting ideas. And I think in general, my idea of myself is still not super strict. Like, I'll tell people, like, oh, yeah, I use he, him, and I'm a guy, and like I'm on testosterone, and I use the boys' bathroom at my school. But I'm not so like attached to that. I'm not like, oh, this means everything to me. It's just like, this is what is making me have fun. Like, I don't know. I just do what I like, and it works out for me. So, I don't know.
Can I jump in about two? I love what both of you had to say, and I just want to say both of you mentioned like I didn't figure it out until later in life, and I just think it's so beautiful that there's no time limit on figuring out who you are. It's an ongoing experience, and like at Duval Pride on Sunday, there was somebody who was like, I'm in my 70s and I just realized I'm trans, and they were like so joyous about it. They were so happy, and it was like really, really cool to experience. And the joy is the other thing I wanted to connect to. You were saying like I'm having fun. I also do drag, and a huge thing for me is that people should be allowed to have fun. That it doesn't always have to make sense to everyone else, and it doesn't always have to. That trans people don't always have to be on the defensive of proving who they are or what they like or want to do. That it's okay to like things and to be figuring it out, and that's also true for cis people. Cis people are figuring out whether they want short hair or not. Like, it's like, and it doesn't. I feel like as a trans person, I've gotten a lot more commentary on whether my hair aligns with what people think it should look like based off of my pronouns than I feel like sometimes cis people get. But cis people also face that. My dad was like, oh, I got so much hate for having long hair when I was in high school. And I was like, me too. Like, why is that? Like, it's just hair, So, yeah, trans people especially, I just want us to have fun, be safe and have fun.
I want to touch on that as well. I think a lot of cis people say, or like at least think that trans people owe them looking like the gender that they identify as, or like non-binary people owe them androgyny. They don't, because cis people don't always present with traditional gender roles. Like, men can wear dresses, girls can wear suits. Like, it doesn't matter, and it really bothers me when I see people go up to trans people. Like, let's say there was a trans boy wearing a dress, and they're like, why are you wearing a dress? I thought you were a boy. Yeah, I can be a boy in a dress. What does it matter? Like, I don't know. People kind of hold double standards with trans people more than they do cis people. And cis people do still get things for the way that they present, but I think it's not as harsh as the way that trans people get it.
Yeah, so going back to the prompt, I didn't really know I was like trans at birth either. It was more something that like I didn't really know that there were like trans people until like a few years ago. And when I did know about them, I didn't really pay them much attention. but I felt like I kind of wanted to be able to like express myself in ways other than that, like other that than the ways that like society kind of forced me to like present as a boy and such. And yeah, I realized that like when I was exploring my gender, I like always like tried to fit into what I thought were like stereotypes of like girls, like makeup and like pink and such. And I didn't really like that for myself personally. And it took me a long while to realize that I like didn't need to have those things in order to be a girl. Yeah.
I first started exploring the concept of gender before I had the words for it. My introduction to the concept of different gender expression was Monty Python. Hello, Mrs. Premise. Hello, Mrs. Conclusion. And that helped open doors, but it was also very damaging because the concept of gender expression for me was always one of humor, that it was something to be made fun of, to be mocked. I didn't get the chance to truly explore my gender until well after college. Much of my life I spent hating myself, and it is only very recently in my life that I've been able to find love for myself in myself. One of the most profound things that's changed how I view the world around me through gender expression is the relationships that I see. There is such an incredibly harmful and toxic pervasiveness to a lot of relationships where men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and never can we bridge the gap between them, that there's no way for us to understand each other. But when you can walk between them, it becomes much easier to see that we can listen to each other. I've never understood the concept of, oh, the old ball and chain, and you're getting married and that's a death sentence. And well, if you love someone, you want to spend your life with them, why are you treating it like a punishment? And being able to explore my own gender identity and being able to see that not everyone falls within these very strict binaries of Mars and Venus, there is a way forward with that. And that has been one of the most eye-opening and informative parts for me, is that in exploring ourselves, we learn better how to learn about others.
Also, as trans people, I think we don't, like a lot of people see us as just having like a set identity, but I think we're always like capable of like exploring. Like if I feel like I would have more fun or like be more comfortable in like presenting as like a certain gender, then I'll go with that. But it can be fluid as well, and I think like sticking myself to like presenting solely as a man or a woman for the rest of my life would not be as just it wouldn't be as like impactful for me.
This is such an important conversation, and I'm grateful to all of you for what you've shared so far. There's a lot that is resonating with my own journey, with the journeys of the people I love who are also within this community. And I think it's important to recognize the amount of nuance that there is within the trans experience. In acknowledging that, I think it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge how hard it is to embark on this journey. So for those who are willing, could you speak a little bit to some of the challenges or barriers that you've faced in exploring gender, both individually and in trying to navigate that in society, particularly because you have a captive audience of local government employees who are here because they care and might want to try to do something to help fix that.
I was raised extremely conservative and religious. I was homeschooled for most of my young life. I was homeschooled until 6th grade, and didn't question and didn't find out until much later in life that the reason that I was homeschooled was to keep me out of the hands of the liberals, which is a fun thing to laugh about now, but was very devastating to learn about in the moment. That a lot of the being homeschooled at such an early age really set me back. You don't get conflict resolution when you're just at home. And school is a very loose term. Growing up in that environment, in an environment where my entire concept of gender expression was that it's a joke, and that's the only way it can be perceived, made it very difficult for most of my life to explore that, even in my own head, in my own heart, without bringing up self-hatred. That my envy of other people for being able to be feminine and flowy and flamboyant and expressive was a sticking point that brought me down for much of my life. A big part of the issues that I faced were in my family, and growing forward and growing up and moving forward with my life, there came points where I had to decide who I could keep in contact with and who I could not. And that has been a intensely painful but also incredibly healing part of my journey, is deciding who I will spend my time and my life with.
Yeah, I definitely had difficult experiences with navigating stuff with family and friends and all that sort of stuff. But even, once I had learned terms, had self-acceptance, had experienced loving relationships, seen them modeled, all this other sort of stuff, some of the challenges still include when I go into a building and I'm like, oh, which bathroom do I use? Being able to have single-user, gender-neutral bathrooms is huge for me, feeling comfortable in a space. There are also little things like I often will not share my pronouns unless someone else initiates, because that lets me know that it's safer to do that with them. I appreciate, even though it's small, when there is a Pride Progress flag in the window of a business. I experienced several times in Florida, especially when I looked very flamboyant, being told that my kind was not served, at coffee shops, at restaurants, and that always, even when I'm not physically in danger, is certainly crushing. It would make anyone feel terrible. So having little signs that make it so that I don't have to ask, am I allowed to be here? Signs that say, you're welcome here, really help me in feeling like I get to participate in public life. When a company has a statement on their website that explicitly is affirming, when you get to see what the policies are of an organization, where I can visit and read them online before I go somewhere, really means a lot to me. When I'm able to see representation, when I look at, okay, who are the people on this council, on this board, who work at this place, who volunteer here, and I'm able to see people who represent a diverse crowd. That makes me more comfortable going there. So those are all things that I deeply appreciate, and it can be difficult to know how to ask for, and can be difficult also just in the sense of exhausting when you're not able to find those spaces. It's a lot easier for me to find those spaces here, but yeah, more are always appreciated.
So I also grew up in a household that didn't really, that wasn't really like accepting of diversity or change. And I think that was part of the reason why, like when I tried exploring my identity, I like had a really strange idea of what trans people were. And I thought that like since I was transitioning, I would be kind of like by default hated by a lot of the people around me, including my family. And so I like struggled to come out to people at first, but then I kind of realized like people can be okay with this, and some are really accepting. Um, so yeah, that's part of my journey, and also being like since my family isn't like quite accepting, I've also struggled to access things like a legal name change or gender or gender affirming care, or a gender change for my legal things, which is pretty annoying on a lot of fronts. And yeah, I just like kind of have to wait until I'm 18 to get that.
I think my biggest challenge has been my mum. I came out to her as non-binary when I was in 5th grade, but nobody was like calling me by my name or my pronouns, so I just stopped being non-binary. And then in 7th grade, I re-explored it, and I have kind of developed to where I can comfortably say that I am confident in my gender. But when I came out to my mum the second time, she said, like, we were at the dinner table, and she said, you know that there's many ways to be a woman, right? And she kept trying to tell me that I was just a tomboy or that I was confused. And this is someone who has been very supportive of the LGBT community for her whole life. And so it was kind of like whiplash to find out that, like, she's fine with it until it's a kid. And I remember that night she yelled at me and my brother about just wanting to be a happy family. And that kind of shut down my asking for needs around being trans for a bit. At the same time, I was online and I was meeting people who were also trans and were also going through the same thing I was. And it was like kind of comforting to know that I wasn't the only person going through it, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I will get through this. And seeing like trans adults who have gone through the same thing I'm going through and got out of it was like amazing. And I think over the past 3 years, as I've transitioned, my mum has gotten more open to the idea of it, but she still doesn't use my pronouns. Like, it's not that she doesn't use them at all, but she just uses my name usually. And that kind of tells me that she doesn't see me the way that I am. She just kind of memorizes them. And it was, I think, 2 weeks ago that she finally told me she would make a meeting with the gender clinic. So I might be getting to go on testosterone soon, but that is not promised, and that kind of makes me sad.
Ooh, Sorry, but I don't know. I think I want to start this off with like, I think when I think of like challenges of my transition, I would say like, oh, like I'm an extremely privileged person, and I think out of all the other trans people I know, I've had an extremely easy transition. But like I also, we called a gender clinic, and I waited for a year, and we called them like over and over, and they were like, we can't tell you where you are on the wait list, and I was like, what does that even mean? Like why? Um, and then after all that time, I got referred to just a general like children's hospital, and then from there, like I had to talk to a therapist for like a while, and then I talked to a doctor, and then she gave me like a period blocker, and we talked about testosterone for like another year before it happened, but that was just because of my age more so rather than like anything else. Um, but I don't know. I think like Tommy has said, I almost feel like I can't be like my to me I'm like, oh, my family's like perfect. But it is kind of like small things of like one of my brothers is an adult that I don't really talk to that much, but I noticed when he came over for Christmas last year, like we were playing a card game in a circle, and everyone was calling me by my name, and then he kept calling me by my birth name, and it was very weird because it's like you're clearly doing that on purpose because no one else is, and we're going around in a circle. And again, I noticed I was with my dad, and he always genders me correctly and always uses my like the name that I prefer, but then I noticed he was on his phone and he has me under my birth name on his phone. And I've been out as trans for like 2 years. And I just was like, I think this shows me something. And one time I called him recently, like a month ago, and he answered the phone and he was like clearly stressed out and he just was like, birth name, like what? And I was like, I didn't even know what to say because I was like, dude, I've been going by a different name for 2 years and you'll call me that to my face, and then out of nowhere it's my birth name because you're stressed out. And for me that's just hurtful. And I think again with like, I wouldn't even say anything about my mom, but she has said similar things as Tommy's mom, but I think it's more like she didn't yell at me, she didn't say I want to be a happy family, but she was like, I'm confused, why don't you just be a butch lesbian? But it's kind of more of like, I think she luckily came from a perspective that was more like actual confusion and wanting an actual answer. Whereas other people will kind of come at you with a question and they don't want an answer to it. They just want you to be like proven wrong or something, or just like change who you are for this person. Um, but yeah, so in general though, do I think it's been easy? Like, yeah, but also I was homeschooled for all of middle school because COVID hit, and I was like, I don't want to do online school. And I just kept doing homeschool until 8th grade. And then I came back to high school publicly, and I kind of realized, like, oh man, like, people think I am a cis guy for the most part. Some people think I'm a butch lesbian because I'm kind of still in my androgynous era, which is very weird. Because one time we were in a circle, and kids were just stuttering so much trying to not gender me in any way. They were like, them, he, Spencer. And it was very weird. And I was like, you can just talk to me. But other kids are more like, oh, like you are violently against this. And I think it's just now I've kind of had this thing where when I'm out in public, I can't I wear like a binder for like the cis people. It makes my like chest less visible, and I can't wear that every day because it's very compressive. And so I'll be out like doing whatever, and I have to worry like, are kids from school here? Like, will they see me? And then they'll be like, oh my god, are you a girl? And then it's this whole thing, and it's like, I don't want kids from school to see me now. Like, am I gonna go out today? Am I gonna overdo it now? Do I have to wear 3 hoodies? What am I doing? And it just kind of like, it sucks, but I don't think it's been, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, my life is so hard, but it kind of sucks.
I wanted to add, thank you so much for sharing all those things. My family had a really, negative reaction to me coming out as trans, and we're like, well, what about hormones? And for me personally, I'm intersex, and so I was actually put on hormones before I was told what they were as a kid, to get me to better fit into the gender I was assigned at birth. And I felt so hurt by that question, where I was like, but you didn't even really ask when you put me on these hormones if that's what I wanted, if that's what I was okay with. You just, immediately assumed that that was the best thing for me. And I don't blame them. Like, I understand why they thought that. But yeah, demystifying like the idea that they were like super scary. Like my parents had to reflect and be like, oh yeah, like you have already been on hormones, and when cis women go through menopause, they go on hormone replacement therapy. And hormones don't have to be this big, scary thing. I would suggest the book Sexing the Body for anyone who's interested on like the biological aspect of a lot of our ideas around what's biologically true is, a lot of the ideas I had at least, were not true. My idea of what estrogen does and what testosterone does, I was totally wrong about. And I thought I had a really, progressive understanding and viewpoint, and I realized that I didn't. And so yeah, I think it's okay to like not know everything and be curious if there's someone in your life. Not putting them on the spot where they might have to be defensively like telling you everything about their medical history the same way you wouldn't want to do that. But that if there is someone in your life who wants to share that with you, that you do some of your own research and just be coming from a place of compassion. And when I say curiosity, you mentioned the like, they ask you a question, but they don't want the answer. Make sure you do some like personal reflection of like, am I ready for what answer I might get? Because you don't know what answer you're gonna get. And that's okay if you have a big emotional reaction to what the other person says. It might not be positive, and that's okay. But to try to not put that on the other person, that you can be like, okay, I'm gonna take time to sit with this. And then, so that you're not harming that relationship with the other person. Yeah, I think it's okay to not make it feel like an emergency when you talk to people about their identity in any sort of capacity. Yeah, so compassion and curiosity are like the two things that I wish people who were close to me in my life had responded with. And what I got was a lot of fear, even if it was, they're afraid for me because they want to take care of me. But that was hard for me to then be trying to comfort them and defend myself. And treating it like an emergency, like, we've got to figure this all out right now. And I was like, no, we don't. Yeah.
There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, and that is kind of, at least for me, like the shift from being in a female world to being in a male world. And like, especially the way that I have noticed male privilege and the way that guys interact with each other as opposed to the way that women interact with each other. And I think cis guys don't realize this because they're kind of born into it, but it is such like, I don't want to say whiplash again, but it is such whiplash to get thrown into like, okay, suddenly you have male privilege and suddenly people are treating you with respect, and that's like, okay. But also, like, learning how to interact with guys as a guy instead of guys as a girl. And I only recently figured out, like, kind of the way that things operate. And once I figured that out, I also had to realize how I'm supposed to be talking to girls as a guy. Like, I'm gay, so I'm not worried about, like, flirting with girls. But, but I don't know how I am supposed to talk to them, if I'm supposed to have like the same buddy energy I am with guys, or if it's supposed to be like a more respectful relationship. Like, unsure how it works. But that's been another thing that's been difficult to navigate, is the dramatic shift between different genders.
I think what he said, big time. Well, generally more so like, okay, first of all, I'm autistic, by the way. So I think it's already like, I don't know any of your social rules, and I'm just straight chilling. And then like, I present the way I do, and I think when I was a girl, it was like, oh my God, stop talking. Especially because I also have ADHD, so I got like the the combo deal. And so it's like I'm talking so much and everyone's like, you're being way too much right now. And I think that's when you're a girl, that's what that is. It's like nobody wants to hear you talk. Let the boys talk right now. And then you become a guy and it's like, oh, like now all of a sudden it's if I accidentally cut someone off, I'm like, I'm so sorry. They're like, no, you get to speak. I'm like, stop. I don't know. It's very weird. And also like Tommy's saying, it's kind of I just talk to people however I want. Well, not that sounds weird. I am a very respectful person, and I also will talk to a lot of different people the same way, pretty much. And then I realize people are like, oh, like a lot of kids, especially in high school, because they're dumb, are like, that's not how you talk to girls. And I'm like, what? Okay. And I think I am kind of like I'm a little bit gay, and I think I am still worried because I guess the way I present people don't always catch that, and I'm like so worried of the thing where people think I'm like being like creepy now. Like that's actually a thing. I like I like smile and wave at babies all the time in public, and now people have started to give me stank eye and move their babies away, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Um, so I don't know what I was really getting at there, but like it's definitely just a weird social experience of like the shift and people are like, "Oh my god, you're a guy." Suddenly, this is a really big deal. And it's like, okay. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think I had a really like similar experience to Aiden's experience with his mom, and like it. I think a lot of like I tried to talk to her multiple times about like accepting like my identity, I guess, and I think it was like she tried to seem like open and receptive to talking, but I think she was just trying to like argue in bad faith by like just saying hormones were bad over and over again. And I think there's like a lot of fear and like stigma that surrounds the trans community and hormones. And there's also like a lot of stuff that's like circulated around the trans community. A lot of like myths that are like you have to like know that you're trans when you're a baby, or that you like what was that? Yeah, you have to like do some other like gatekeepy stuff to like be trans. And I think a lot of my like since my mother like read her sources, like got her information from some like random like Chinese site, so I don't know how like reputable and trustworthy that information is, but yeah, it's just you. I think like being able to like check your sources and like verify the facts before like I guess just being so insistent that you're right is important. To like being able to admit that you're wrong is a very important skill in life.
That just reminded me is about the having stuff in multiple languages, and just the intersection of like, to me, everything is connected. So like, I need trans resources to be accessible. So it's a accessibility issue. I need it to be in multiple languages so I can share it with my family members who don't speak English, or even if they do, it's not as comfortable to read something in English. I need there to be all sorts, like all of these different ways that they interact are all really important. And two of the things that also made me think of is on documents, really think about, do you need to know this person's gender? It's often fluid and changes, and think about, is this actually relevant to ask this on this document? Because that I find that it's often not, and is just something that people should not have to answer. And then also for when people put their name, it's okay to require a legal name for many, many things, but that there are plenty of people who, for whatever reason, can't legally change their name. And so respecting the name that they they use by having a section on the form for what name they actually go by, and then respecting that instead of just going off of their legal name. For me, like, it cost me like $1,000 to change my name, and you got to go to court, and it's a whole thing. And so, yeah, I really deeply appreciated the people in my life who allowed me to even to just put on a name tag the name that I actually went by while I was still in the process of legally changing my name.
Yeah, also, I think there's like a lot of people assume based on like different characteristics of a person, like for example, racism, like transphobia, and like stuff like that. It's always like when people think they know something about someone based on that person's characteristics, like their skin color or like how they're presenting, and often that's not the case. And a lot of like transphobia, I think, is just it's just spread by people who have never met a trans person in real life and genuinely tried to talk to them about their experience and like treated them as just another human to talk to.
And if you think you haven't met someone trans, you have. So try to think about how you can make people feel comfortable sharing that side of themselves with you, because I've heard that from many, many people where they're like, well, I've never met a trans person, and I'm thinking in my head, well, I'm trans, but I know it is not safe for me to out myself to you. So I'm not able to share that with you. And that makes me sad, because they're often lovely people who I wish I could connect with further. And that, so it's, yeah, try to think about how you can not put them on the spot by demanding people tell you whether they're trans or not, but just that they know that you're a safe person to be able to share that with.
Yeah, and it can also be like really difficult to do that if you're not like familiar with like how to do it, I guess. But just like, I think the best way to like be open and receptive about it is just to like, yeah, be like open and receptive, and just listen to what the other person has to say and just think for yourself.
This has been such a beautiful conversation. I want to thank all of you for sharing your experiences, for giving our audience some practical examples of what works and what doesn't, what is difficult, what makes things easier. And as we get ready to close, I'm going to ask the impossible of you. In a single sentence, could each of you express, what does trans joy mean to you as we close out our time together today?
Trans joy is radical self-love.
For me, no matter what the question, collective liberation is the answer. That's where there gets to be joy, and there gets to be safety, and there gets to be togetherness.
I think trans joy is to be able to express myself without fear of judgment or hate.
I think being able to fully embrace who you are around the people you care about, and then not having to worry about what they think about you.
Trans joy is one sentence. That's crazy.
I fully know.
Yeah,
I own
definitely
it.
all that stuff of like, I don't know. I think it's nice to be able to just express yourself, and it's like, I'm a guy and I'm a little bit trans with it, and then it doesn't affect the perception of me at all. And then that's the whole thing. Also, kissing boys.
You're onto something then.
I think I am.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank each and every one of you. Can our audience, can we please give this group a round of applause? Thank you all for joining us today. I hope this conversation leaves you with a lot to think about. When I think about last year's events, we had similar panel conversations, and when we came back from the New Year's holiday, I had many folks come and speak to me saying, wow, at Thanksgiving, a family member of mine introduced new pronouns that I didn't know and I didn't understand, and coming to an event like this was really helpful in helping me know how to start that conversation. So I think to one of the points raised earlier, if you don't think you've met a trans person, one, if you know me, then you do. Two, if you don't know me, you probably have met a trans person in your life. Somebody who either has shared that with others or who will discover that about themselves and be ready to share that. So it's important as we think about what it means to go through the holidays, which can be a really tough time for people generally, to think of how do we create safety and love and compassion and togetherness for all people, so that those who need a little bit of extra safety and love can find it. Thank you all again for coming. This Thursday, we will have our Trans Remembrance Week memorial ceremony, where we will read the names of lives lost to trans violence, to anti-trans violence, here in council chambers. So we hope you will join us for that at 11 o'clock. Otherwise, thank you again. And one last time, round of applause for our panelists. Thank you all.